Hello ladies and gentlemen. 2019 has arrived, new games are coming, and thus it's time for a new my most anticipated games list. My top 5, like last year. But unlike last year, this year's list was harder to decide because there is just so many games coming out this year that I'm interested in that it was hard to decide which ones to add to this list. So not all of them are being listed or mentioned here. But before we get to the top 5 of 2019, I think I should briefly mention a couple of other games that I mentioned in my last year's My Top 5 Most Anticipated Games of 2018 video. Gibbo's A Cthulhu Adventure, which is a classic LucasArts-inspired adventure game based on H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos and developed by Stuck in Addict, and Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones, which is an old-school computer role-playing game, also based on Cthulhu mythos, developed by Cultic Games. At the time, I thought these two were going to be released last year, but they weren't. I know that Gibbo's beta suffered from delays due to one of their main voice actors being hospitalized, but even if everything went smoothly, the full game still may not have been released in 2018. Stygian was aimed to be released in 2019 all along, and I just learned that too late. So that was my bad. Regardless, I'm still waiting for these two games just as much as I did last year. But because I wanted to give more spotlight to other games that I'm looking forward to this year, I didn't add these two to this list, and I'm just briefly mentioning them. You can learn more about these two titles by checking out my Top 5 Most Anticipated Games of 2018 video via the link down below. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to my top 5 most anticipated games of 2019. The first one is Pathway, developed by Robotality and published by Chucklefish. It's a strategy adventure game featuring turn-based combat and unique story encounters. The story takes place in the year 1936. It's a time of global unrest as German military influence is spreading throughout Europe and the Middle East. It's rumored that the Nazis have started excavations looking for strange artifacts while also practicing occult rituals and research. And they have kidnapped our friend Morten. So we must go and rescue him while exploring temples, tombs and deserts and kill some Nazi bastards on the way. Why does that setting sound so familiar? Anyway, this game seems to have a lot of interesting features. It's a roguelike in a sense that no playthrough is going to be the same, as each campaign generates a new procedural map and a different set of unique story encounters. Every location has its own handcrafted story event to explore. The turn-based combat seems to be rather deep as well, as you must learn to maximize your items and abilities. Speaking about abilities, you can recruit from 16 unique companions, each with their own starting equipment and skill trees. And look at it. It looks gorgeous. As you can see, the game has classic 16-bit pixel art graphics enhanced with some of the most beautiful lighting and shadow effects that I have ever seen in a pixel art game. No official release dates or even year quarters have been announced, but it should come out at some point this year. The second game is Iron Maiden, developed by Voidpoint and published by 3D Realms, the same company responsible for the best build engine FPS games from the 90s, Duke Nukem 3D, Shadow Warrior and Blood, before they sold it to Monolith Productions. It's the old school visual style, feel and gameplay of those great shooters that Iron Maiden is trying to recapture while using the same, albeit modified, build engine. After playing through the early access preview campaign, I can tell you that they have succeeded in that. You play as Shelley Bombshell Harrison working for the Global Defense Force and fight against this evil transhumanist mastermind named Dr. Jadus Haskell and the members of his cybernetic cult. Like its 19 predecessors, Iron Maiden has large and complex levels to explore and secrets to find. There's no checkpoint, no regenerating health, none of that crap. But like in modern games, you can do headshots, which you couldn't do in previous build engine games as far as I know. The game has a wide variety of different guns and other tools at your disposal, from the 3-barreled Loverboy revolver to a grenade launcher and bowling bombs that seek nearby enemies to blow up. And of course, lots of references to old classics and badass one-liners from Shelley. No official release dates have been announced, but Iron Maiden leaves early access around the second quarter of 2019, so around late spring, early summer, and the full game should come out as well once that happens. If you want to check out my playthrough of the preview campaign, the link can be found down below. The third game is 3 Minutes to Midnight, developed and published by Scarecrow Studio. The moment I heard the title I was interested immediately, and even more when I saw the trailer. 3 Minutes to Midnight is a classic point-and-click adventure game inspired by LucasArts adventure games such as The Secret of Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, and Sam & Max Hit the Road. The game takes place in New Mexico in 1940s, soon after the end of World War II. The story is about two female protagonists, a plucky teenager, Betty Anderson, who lost her memory after an explosion in the desert, and Mayor Eliza Barrett, both trying to unravel a conspiracy that is much deeper and darker than it seems at first glance. While doing that, we'll be dealing with a corrupt mayor, a secret military base, the mafia, and whatever else the game has in store for us. And that's really all I know about the game as far as the story goes. But I bet it's about aliens. That's my wild guess. I really like the look and art style of the game. The protagonist Betty, whom I assume is the one we'll be spending most of our time with considering how much screen time she has in the trailer, looks like a lot of fun. The location and time period are also intriguing. No release dates have been announced, but it should come out at some point in 2019. One thing that should have started last year already is the game's Kickstarter campaign. If you go to the frequently asked questions section on the website, they say that the campaign will be launched at some point around September 2018, if everything goes as planned. I was surprised when I first heard about that because it didn't look like Scarecrow Studio needed any extra funding. But in any case, no Kickstarter campaign regarding this game has started yet by the time of recording this. And I don't know when they'll start it, assuming they still plan to do it. But if they do it, I'll be sure to back it because 3 Minutes to Midnight is my most anticipated point-and-click adventure game this year. The fourth game is Warcraft 3 Reforged. Easily the best thing revealed at BlizzCon 2018, and I don't think much needs to be said about this title. It's remastered/remade Warcraft 3. One of the best and most influential RTS games ever made by Blizzard Entertainment, originally released in 2002. It's an HD remaster in a sense that graphics will be greatly improved, of course, but the core gameplay, like the way how the unit's pathing works and how many you can control at the same time, stay the same. But it's also a remake because they are remaking at least some of the story campaign missions in order to reflect the current canon better, and to make certain lore-wise important locations more recognizable to World of Warcraft players. The Culling of Stratholme, one of the iconic missions of the human campaign where Arthas and Mal'Ganis first confront and which was shown at BlizzCon, is one of those missions. Reforged includes both the base game, Reign of Chaos, and the expansion, The Frozen Throne. But the reason why I'm very excited about this game is not because I get to play the story campaign in brand new high-definition graphics. I think the old ones from 2002 still look good. And it's not even because I'm a big Warcraft fan, or the multiplayer. It's the mods. One of the main reasons why the game has lived on for this long with a dedicated fan base, besides the multiplayer, is because of the map editor and the modding community. There's already thousands of mods, from simple multiplayer maps, single-player story campaigns, and tower defense maps to mods that are pretty much their own games, like action RPGs, survival games, isometric shooters, even battle royale maps, and many others. Hell, the whole MOBA genre was born from a Warcraft 3 mod. And, according to the developers, one of the priorities is to make all these mods as easy to be ported to Reforged as possible, and the map editor in general will be improved. I'm very excited to see what mods the community will create with the improved Warcraft 3 Reforged map editor, especially considering how amazing some of the already existing Warcraft 3 mods look. I'm even thinking about starting my own Warcraft 3 Mod Corner series, where I check out and play some of the most interesting looking mods that I run into after I have finished all the story campaigns. No exact release dates or even year quarters have been announced, but the game should launch this year regardless. I personally would estimate that it comes out somewhere around 4th or 3rd year quarter if we are lucky. And lastly, but certainly not least, Desperados III. Developed by Mimimi Productions and published by THQ Nordic. Now this is a title I never thought I would see happening even in my wildest dreams. Hell, the idea of a third game in the franchise never even occurred to me. So I was very shocked and surprised when I first heard the news, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I watched the announcement trailer. I was even getting a little emotional, because Desperados, the first game, Wanted Dead or Alive, that came out in 2001, is one of my most favorite games ever. If I had to make a list of my most favorite games from my childhood, and I just might make a video like that in the future, Desperados, Wanted Dead or Alive would easily be one of the top 5. I did try out the second game many years ago. I think it was a demo, but I hated it back then and never bothered to give it another chance. So I just played the first game for years. But back to this third installment. What is Desperados 3? It's an old school real-time tactical stealth game, similar to games like the Commando series from the late 90s and early 2000, and of course the first Desperados game. Judging from the gameplay videos, Desperados 3 is going to play very similarly to Mimimi Productions' last great real-time tactical stealth game, Shadow Tactics: Blades of the Shogun from 2016, where the game took place in Japan in Edo period. I even made a let's play of that game soon after it was released. The only real noticeable difference between the two is the setting, which in Desperados 3 is the Wild West in 1870s United States and New Mexico. There will be 5 playable characters in the game, 3 of them being returning characters from the last 2 games, each having their own unique skills and abilities. One different and interesting feature that the game has is civilian areas, which are public areas where your characters can blend in with the crowd, and even if the enemies do see you, they won't attack, assuming you are a civilian yourself. Nothing like this has ever been done in previous old school tactical stealth games like this in the past, as far as I know. So this is a very cool and interesting feature, and I can't wait to play this third installment of one of my most favorite games from my childhood once it comes out. As for when it comes out, no exact release dates have been announced, but they are planning to release the game around this summer. Speaking about Desperados, with the news that Calypso Media has picked up the rights to the Commandos IP, we will most likely get an announcement for a new Commandos game in the near future. Looks like old school tactical real-time stealth games are being revived, just like old school CRPGs were a few years back. And there you have it, folks. Those were my top 5 most anticipated games of 2019. An Indiana Jones-like adventure game with turn-based combat, an old school build engine FPS game, an intriguing classic point-and-click adventure game, one of the best RTS games being Reforged with an improved map editor, and an old school real-time tactical stealth game taking place in the Wild West, bringing one of my most favorite game franchises back. Not to mention the 2 Cthulhu Mythos-based games I briefly mentioned at the start. Lots of good games coming up this year. You can be sure I'll play all of them on my channel at some point in the future after their release, depending on my schedules. What games are you looking forward to the most this year? So that's it, folks. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.